Arakko Public Radio is brought to you today by the Magneto Memorial Trust and a grant from Oris Arata.
Welcome to Arakko Public Radio, your weekly dose of X-Men comic chat. I'm Rod, and this is the man I will be covering all 1,000 X-Men crossovers in the next year with, my one and only co-Mega Mutant. This week, we're talking AXE Xmen number 1, X-Men Red number 7, Marauders number 7, and AXE Starfox number 1. And then we've got some major news coming out of New York Comic Con to cover. But first, let's play a game. I call this one First Appearances. I'm going to name a comic book issue, and you tell me which important X-Men related character debuted in that issue. I got 5, so if you get 3, I'm going to count it as a win.
Okay. Let's see. I'm so bad at remembering these. I'm excited to see how I do with it.
No worries. Incredible Hulk number 180.
Wolverine.
Yep. And actually, someone's going to nitpick me and claim it's 181 because the major collectors call what his appearance in 180 a cameo. So 181 is his first real appearance. But for my money, the first time you're there is your first appearance. New Mutants 98.
New Mutants 98. Oh, God. I have no idea.
Deadpool.
Oh, okay.
See, now that one was a tricky one because I think it's New Mutants 96 was Cable. So they were like right, just a couple issues apart from each other. But
I don't think I realized they were that close to each other.
Yeah, it was like 2 or 3 at the most. Miss Marvel number 18.
Miss Marvel number 18. Who could that be? And it's a mutant. No clue.
When I tell you it will have. I was trying to make a blew your mind joke, but I couldn't figure out the way to still make it blue. Mystique.
Really? What? Okay.
Iron Fist number 14.
Iron Fist number 14. Who would that?
Told you this was a fun one.
Oh, this is tough. I like it.
It's a character you really like. It's a character related to another one we've already covered.
Is it Daken?
No.
Oh,
Sabretooth. You were in the right wheelhouse. Yeah, that one blew my mind. The others I went out of my way to find, but blew my mind. Sabretooth debuted in an Iron Fist book.
To me, like, I feel like Daken would make more sense than Sabretooth, like, just thematically. Sabretooth seems wild. Okay, whoa.
All right, so you've already lost. You only got one.
I failed hard.
But I'm going to give you the last one.
Okay.
Now, this is the only one that's actually in an issue of X-Men, but I think you might get this one just because of what else we're covering today. Okay. Uncanny X-Men 221 was the first appearance of who?
Uncanny X-Men
221. It's another villain.
21. Is it Sinister?
Yes.
Okay.
So you got 2. Yeah, Mr. Sinister. All right.
Interesting. Wow. Oh, wow. Some of those just fascinate me, though.
That was why I did it. I didn't really it wasn't anything that would have been trivia you knew necessarily, but it was all fun. I thought though that was crazy how many major X-Men characters didn't debut in X-Men.
Yeah, Sabretooth and Mystique have me spinning.
I got to read that Iron Fist issue now. I'm really curious. AXE Xmen number 1. Despite being another story-critical one-shot, this continues directly from last week's AXE Avengers number 1. Follows the group climbing the inside of the progenitor. Jean psychically checks in on the outside world, unable to get more than flashes of the chaos. The crew debate their next move, with Tony suggesting the progenitor still could revive everyone, since they're still being judged. Mr. Sinister jokes about finding the controls, and Makari does not like that. They agree they're going to try to negotiate instead of killing it, and continue their journey. They reach the energy monitoring facility, which is essentially a giant concentrated inferno that matches the energy of a small star. Jean psychically cuts a path through it, but it's knocked out by the effort. Cue a dream sequence where the progenitor poses as Professor X on the first day she arrived at the school, and a guilt trip very similar to the one Tony faced last week. The dream shifts to the Quiet Council, where Jean continues to plead that she's more than the Dark Phoenix and that she's made a difference. Wolverine and Sinister psychically insert themselves into her test to help her out, but she insists she has to face it alone. The progenitor calls them both as character witnesses regardless, and both Wolverine and Sinister praise her in their way. The Celestial then passes judgment. He explains that Cyclops passed because he was afraid of her, but still married the only thing that petrifies him. That level of bravery was what passed him, but he thinks Cyclops is right. She's too powerful. She will always be the Dark Phoenix, and she can never redeem herself. She fails. When she wakes, Tony tries to shame her, but Wolverine shuts him up. He reassures her that any god that passes Wolverine and fails her isn't a god at all. Jean then goes full beast mode, and Wolverine quips, "Stay back and let her work it out. She was always Chuck's star pupil. She's not used to failing tests." This was another fun one-shot.
Yeah, I enjoyed it for what it was. I'm enjoying these story critical one-shots pretty well.
Yeah. It's kind of an excuse for him to just do a deep dive on each of these characters, but he's done a good deep dive on each of them so far.
Yeah, it's kind of like Judgment Day's own Immortal X-Men thing.
Yeah.
You know,
well, yeah, like these characters don't fit into Immortal X-Men, so he's doing an Immortal X-Men issue on them here.
Yeah, exactly.
I like that. I hadn't thought about it that way, but that's really smart. So, where do we stand on Jean's cosmic scorecard? Do we think the Celestial's right? She's never going to redeem herself, or?
I think she can be redeemed. I mean, how many times has she saved the world? You know,
The question of if she can be redeemed just automatically makes me think, like, well, then she either has or she hasn't, right? Like, in the amount of heroics she's done, she's either cleaned the slate or she never will. I don't imagine, like, she's still climbing that ladder of morality, but I do have a theory, or I don't know if theory is the right word for it. I think this expounds on a theory that's been on the internet for a while and kind of reinforces it. So they kind of wiped away the Dark Phoenix, the effects of the Dark Phoenix, with saying that it was a copy of her, and then they found her in like an energy cocoon in the bottom of the sea. It was supposed to alleviate her guilt then, right? But the dialogue here only really makes sense if the Dark Phoenix was Jean, not a copy of her, not like a husk that acted as Jean. So there's been this internet theory for years that the whole cocoon thing was either a conscious or subconscious effort on Jean's part to like absolve her own guilt. That it's a lie that all of the X-Men have like lied to themselves because it's so hard to reconcile. Your buddy and one of your leaders also wiped out planets. The way the Celestial blames her for stuff that, as far as like our chronology of events goes, she didn't do, makes me think maybe there's some weight to that theory.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Or they're just undoing the cocoon. One or the other.
One or the other. Yeah, I mean, obviously, you know, any destruction of life is bad, and you can't put a value to one life and make it up with another. Like, right, that's the whole moral dilemma of it all. But I think the fact that she earnestly tries to do good and put good out into the world ever since, you know, I think that's redemption.
Like in the real world, I'm very much of the mindset that we should abolish all prisons. Like I think there's very few crimes in our reality that are completely irredeemable. Like right. I think that the entire point of like having a society is to allow for rehabilitation and growth and all of those things, and to give people the chance to earn back or give back. But it's also hard to reconcile. Like, we don't have a parallel of like literally wiping out planets worth of beings. Like that is a scale that we can't really comprehend in the real world. So it makes it really an interesting like debate. I love Jean Grey, and
it's a compelling struggle. It's a compelling story every time.
Yeah. So I as much as I want to say like she should move on and be forgiven, I also find issues like this really, really interesting. And it's one of those dilemmas of comics where you're constantly having to deal with, do you move a character forward or not? And I don't know. I thought this was Gillen really presenting the internal struggle she faces really well. Yeah. Whether she was a cocoon at one point or not.
Absolutely. It was well done, regardless of what side of redemption you land on. It's just well done.
So flipping from Jean to Cyclops, we really enjoyed Jerry Dugan's issue where we saw Cyclops get the thumbs up, and it got recontextualized hard in this.
Yeah.
How do we feel knowing that he passed not being so confident in himself, but for being so brave in being
I have like a complicated opinion of it because I find that truth coming to light very interesting. Right. I find that and like the whole idea that like the only thing that Cyclops truly fears is his wife, but not for like it's my wife reasons, like it's a sitcom, but
but like truly it's
the
only
Jean
power
Grey of it all.
Yeah.
Yeah. I find that to be like a really interesting and like cool story piece, but I don't like how it recontextualizes his judgment and the way that he went about his whole thing.
Yeah, it steals from one to give to another. Like,
yeah,
it adds weight to Jean, but definitely takes something from Scott.
And like honestly, I like that Scott essentially had a cool guy walking away from explosion moment.
Yeah, I was thinking about how when it happened, we talked about how it didn't really make sense in relation to Captain America's failure. That it was a weird choice. It does kind of show that the progenitor wasn't really focusing on the aspects we thought he was focusing on.
That's true.
Maybe it never really was about confidence. Maybe it's always been about weird stuff like only being afraid of your wife.
Yeah, I mean, that's very fair.
Overall, I would say I would give this issue a thumbs up. I don't know that I feel as much as I was at the beginning of the event that like every single tie-in is amazing. Like this just felt like another Judgment to an extent. It was well done, but not as necessary or as like giving me life.
I'll agree with that. I got a lot of enjoyment out of the Logan stuff in it, like the Wolverine of it. I enjoyed his moments a lot.
I like that apparently we are heavily focusing on the triangle again, or like because there was this weird thing where the first part of Krakoa, they were literally living in adjoining rooms. Like it was very clear Jean was sleeping with both of them, and they never explicitly said it, but like they literally showed maps of the house where there was no doors separating. Like Cyclops and Wolverine's rooms were both attached to Jean's, and clearly it was a polyamorous situation. And then moved back to Earth, and it just seemed like they were really moving away from her still being with Wolverine. It seems like maybe this is bringing back at least some of their romantic tension, which I really like.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that. I liked that it leaned so hard into the polyamory thing at first. I just thought that was like a really cool thing to just kind of include and not make a thing about it, that it's just there. And then the fact that they had essentially just undone it for a while was a bummer. So I'm glad, like you said, it's kind of bringing it back into the fold.
It is, as I said on TikTok this week, my favorite book currently on the stands. Should we talk X-Men Red?
Yeah, absolutely we should.
The first half of this issue is an expansion of the scene in Judgment Day number 4, where Magneto died. As he dies in Storm's arms, he gives a powerful speech, with Storm threatening to revive him without a backup. But he assures her that couldn't happen unless he wanted to be brought back. He implores her to watch Charles now that he's going to be truly alone, and that now, more than ever, everyone has to come together. She promises to watch him, and Magneto dies with visions of Anya. Then, the surviving Great Ring members confront Iska for killing Idol and playing both sides. They reveal a member of the Great Ring killing another is completely unprecedented in the history of the Ring. Iska lashes out, claiming that because she could never lose, then she could take out the entire Great Ring if she so chose. She asks what could they do about it, and Storm announces they'd fight her, even knowing they'd lose. They all make it clear that the Iraqi do not fear death, but then Fisher King speaks up. That's not a job for them. That's a job for the Night Seeds. He keeps it simple. He challenges her to a contest of understanding, with the winner being the one who understands loss. This causes her to reflect on her 10,000 years of life and realizes she's never known loss, and thus cannot be an Iraqi. She resigns from the ring, and with the extra knife twist that the progenitor chooses that moment to give her a thumbs up, she leaves. The Great Ring now has 3 empty seats, and Lotus Logos recommends they look to the future. Storm agrees and yields the seat of all around us to him. She acknowledges with her responsibilities to Earth, she can't lead Arakko. She's still mourning her friend, though, and she takes the seat of loss. Oh, and in a post-credit scene, Cable and WizKid access Abigail Brand's files, and Cable looks ready to kill. All right. I gotta ask you.
Yeah.
We talked last issue about how every single issue got better for you.
Mm-hmm.
Did this one top the last still? Or
I don't know that this one topped it for me. I still think that this is incredible. Like top 3 issues of the year.
yeah,
But like I think it might be equal to the last one, and that they pair very well together.
this would still be the best issue of any other book, but it's not on par with the Hour of Magneto or the Hour of Uranos for me. Or like those issues just blew my mind. This was just a really nice kind of denouement. Like I really enjoyed it. It was a great Magneto speech was amazing. Seeing some Iska like evolution there was really cool. We finally hit the top for now. I think we'll see if
we're currently at a ceiling, but you know, I'm not confident that it's a sturdy ceiling. I feel it can still be broken.
I want to start at the end.
Yes.
Abigail Brand has needed her comeuppance for so long, and the way Cable's fury was drawn on that page was so cool.
It was so good. It was so cool. I'm so excited to see what Cable does.
And you know, it had that Al Ewing pacing where I was reading digitally, so I didn't feel more pages behind it. So I didn't see it coming. I thought we were done, and then I flip it and that scene came up. So it was really cool.
Absolutely. Really well put together with all of that. And just, yeah, I mean, I'm looking at it right now. Just the anger on Cable's face.
And it's funny because I figured with us moving straight from this to, I didn't know at the time how heavy, but Sins of Sinister and like I think we have one more Judgment Day tie-in issue. It just didn't, to me, feel like, or maybe not, but either way, I didn't think we were going to get to the Cable stuff till maybe next year. I thought Abigail Brand was getting kicked down the road further, so I'm so happy to see we're going to deal with it. Fisher King and Sunspot are like duo of the year now for me.
They're so good together.
I
love them so much.
It's amazing, crotchety old, like zero tech, like just down to earth guy, and Robert DaCosta could play off each other so well, but they are just the perfect duo.
I love them together so much. Fisher King MVP, like
100%, which is a running theme. Every time we see him, he is MVP.
It's very true. Oh wow, just fantastic.
Lotus Logos, taking over because the artists have to lead Arakko now. Like his speech was so powerful. You think, oh, Magneto just gave this really powerful speech. There's no way there's going to be another glorious speech in this issue. Oh wait, nope, we have another really glorious speech already.
I mean, Magneto's speech.
Yeah, I was trying to think of anything to even say about it. It's just a beautiful. I mean, people joked online, and I mean, Storm calls it out herself, but he's literally dying, and he gives a full-on soliloquy. But it's so powerful,
and I feel like it's just so in line with who he is as a person. Like it's not out of character for him to give a full soliloquy as he dies.
100%. He makes the point that he cannot revive from the waiting room without consent, which we didn't know about. So that was a really cool kind of lore expansion, because we had talked about that of like, well, why do we even need the Cerebro backups then? But it sounds like there is a level of like, there needs to be the willpower of wanting to come back to be pulled from the waiting room.
Mm-hmm.
I still think Charles brings him back sooner than later.
Yeah.
So whether that's he had a secret backup, or what movie pulls, I see it coming sooner than later.
Oh, in my mind, there's zero part of me that believes that Charles doesn't have a backup. Yeah. You know, like he's such. I can't believe I'm about to say this. Like, given my childhood of loving these characters, Charles is such a scumbag that there's no way that he doesn't.
Weird that he's not like he's not the good guy out of the three of them now. Like out of the people that out of him, Moira and Magneto, like Magneto's the only good guy left.
Yeah, truly. It's wild.
I like it though. I like that flip has been made, and it's gonna make cartoon synergy really easy when X-Men 92, 97, whichever they're calling it,
called. Yeah.
comes in, and hopefully will lead to MCU synergy. Because if they try after this arc making a villainous Magneto in the movies, I am going to be livid.
You cannot make Magneto a villain. I don't care what fool says what about the cartoons or the comics or the yada, yada, yada. You can't make Magneto a villain, and it's weird that we ever made a Holocaust survivor a villain in the first place.
To be fair, the order of events was he was a villain, and then they made him a Holocaust survivor, thankfully.
That is a fair point.
In hindsight, we cannot go back.
Yeah. I feel like once that happened, like you can't really redo.
His speech is so hard for me to talk about because it was beautiful, and like I don't want to ruin it by picking it apart. But
no, I it's kind of like one of those things that's just kind of beyond approaching it on a analytical level, and it's just like I enjoy this because it was amazing.
Yeah. I don't know if you noticed it when you read it. I want you to look at that last page of the main story when Storm takes the seat of loss. Okay. And I want you to look at the smoke behind her. It's just, to me, it's one of the most glorious pages ever.
That's Magneto's helmet.
Yeah, how amazing is that? That blew me away. I was so happy when I saw that.
I didn't even notice that.
Like that might be my page of the year. This isn't my issue of the year, but that page might top that page might top the him with his heart ripped out.
That's Magneto's helmet. Oh, that's so cool.
Like it's just subtle enough if you're flipping, you might miss it, but like once you know it's there, it's just gorgeous.
God, I want a poster of that.
I think I'm gonna have to get it blown up and it's going on my wall somewhere. I love that page. Yeah.
That's cool. Wow.
Starfox is desperately trying to save as many people as possible and second guessing if he should have taken Cersei's advice to influence people into passing the progenitor's test. Through flashbacks, we see his origin recapped, though a lot of it's repeat information from Gillen's Eternals run. Susan and Alars had 2 children in their attempts to prove that new Eternals could be made. Thanos was a universal mass murderer, and Eros was meant to redeem all that. Eros couldn't handle the pressure and decided to be an aimless adventurer instead. And while he was off gallivanting, Thanos wiped out all of the Eternals on Titan. As punishment, he was excluded until Cersei freed him on Judgment Day. In the present day, Starfox realizes the best bet to help humans is to open all the portals and let them hide out until the assault's over. But Zurus tries to stop him. They work out a deal quickly. As soon as Judgment Day is over, Zurus can be Prime Eternal as long as he trusts Eros in this moment. As every human on Earth files through the portal, he assures them that love will save the world. He hopes someone believes it. I liked it. It was a good issue.
Yeah, I thought it was a good issue. I've been enjoying the Starfox stuff quite a lot.
Yeah, I wrote this out, but I think it completes the redemption arc of Eros. Like, I don't remember if it made it into one of the episodes we've aired or if it was in one of our like pilot episodes we did that are going to go up eventually. But I talked at one point about how like it would be really hard to turn Eris's power into like a compelling heroic character. But I think he managed to take this manipulative and dark past and the problematic power set and turn it into like a compelling source of reluctant optimism. So to me, like Gillen working in Gillen's wheelhouse, and we got this was a pretty good arc for him.
I have to agree. I think they really they stuck the landing on that and made it work like really well.
Yeah. I don't know that I need to see a ton more of him right away. Like I'm sure he plays some part in the last issue of the main event. And then I'd probably be okay if we don't see a ton of him right away. Like, I feel like we've seen the major beats we need to see, and we can let Starfox rest again for a while, probably.
I think so, too.
It wasn't really a major X-Men heavy issue, but I didn't talk about it here in the recap, but this spoils like a pretty major beat of Death of the Mutants #3 in like a really anticlimactic and super unnecessary way. I don't know. Do we want to talk about it or not? Like Gillen literally tweeted a warning to people that they may want to wait to read this issue till next week's Death of the Mutants comes out. Or I'll put a timestamp in the notes of like what time to skip to. So from right here, we're going to talk about something that happens in this issue that spoils a beat of Death to the Mutants. So if you didn't read this and you are going to read that, skip ahead to the time I put in the show notes now. So the machine being like reset. So they wiped the personality of the machine that is Earth.
Yeah.
And they just kind of throw that out there. There's like, oh, and since you've been rebooted, apparently plays out in Death of the Mutants #3, which should be really interesting. But considering really the machine is one of the main characters of this event, that narration has been a really important thread through the whole thing. What's up with Marvel's release schedule?
Okay, I was wondering about that. I didn't see Gillen's tweet about it.
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh, okay, when did they reset it? You know,
I didn't see Gillen's tweet till after, and so reading it, I just thought, man, that's a really crummy way to that news. And so it made sense once I saw Gillen's tweet of like, oh, that wasn't how we were supposed to get that news.
I feel like, especially when it's like, this isn't a monthly issue. It's a one shot. Yeah. Why not just push the one shot back with it?
Yeah, you could either... Next week is a really stacked week, but you could have either pushed Death of the Mutants forward. You could push this back 2 weeks because we've got a really slow week the week after. It just doesn't make sense to me. I can't understand why Marvel felt it was necessary to spoil that. There was some mistake in editorial for sure.
Yeah, that's weird to me.
We're an X-Men podcast. I won't spend forever on it, but the Zurus thing, taking over as Prime Eternal... I'm really curious, one, where the Eternals are going to be after this event, and two, if we're going to really see it right away.
Right.
Like, because it really feels like this is Gillen's, like, farewell letter. Like, I think the Omega issue of this event is going to be his last work with the Eternals. And weren't the Eternals dormant for a full, like, 10, maybe even 15 years in between before Gillen took over? So,
something like that.
It feels like that might be trying to get us to a status quo where we can leave them behind for a while, which will be interesting. I've really enjoyed Gillen's work with the Eternals. I think it's been really fun. But yeah, this doesn't have a ton of bearing on the X-Men, so we can jump to Marauders unless you've got something more.
No, I mean, that's about all I had for it.
All right. Marauders #7. Hey, we've got another Stringfellow, Scratch, Lockheed, and Theater of Pain scene at the beginning with no follow-up. It sure is fun keeping this subplot straight in my head for all of 1 page a month. Anyway, they really don't like each other. Back in Krakoa, Cerebra and Kate chat about how Cerebra is acclimating to the present day and how Cerebra should be able to access the time drive. Cerebra also reaffirms she isn't able to join the team yet. She's got to keep settling in. The rest of the team visit Captain America, Nebraska for a quick showdown with the far-right militia, the Watchdogs. Fang beats a mutant vigilante named Horsepower who goes too hard against him. Then, using a boost fruit from Bishop, Cerebra successfully revives the Threshold. The 3 ancient mutants share their history, their powers, how they ended up the last 3 survivors on a voyage through time. Bishop recounts how it was Kate's ingenuity, last arc's time heist, that brought them here. Fang argues this whole thing is impossible. Mutants can't predate humans. But others in the group reassure him, like, hey, it all makes sense. It all works, whatever. They explain that they had a thriving civilization that was killed by the creatures that survived the oxygenation catastrophe, and that they are the last survivors of the war between them, which escalated because they created sentient viruses that ended up turning against them. Kitty agrees to go back in time to save their society because paradoxes don't matter. But Cassandra Nova connects the dots. The viruses, they're those evil bacteria siblings, Archaea and Sublime. Archaea, I don't know. The Sublime was from Grant Morrison, and then Brian Wood added her sister Archaea in like 2013. So she's a little bit more obscure, but what's not obscure in this arc, right?
Honestly, it's interesting.
I mean, it really is kind of blowing my mind how much of Grant Morrison's run is getting brought into this.
Mm-hmm.
and how much that's not making this my favorite book. Because I absolutely adore the Grant Morrison run. It's like one of my sentimental favorites forever. This book is so all over the place.
Yeah, I, I want to like it more. I really want to, but
So I think we talked about this last week. It's got the energy of an Al Ewing book where Steve Orlando's trying to bring in everything. Whatever that like skill that Ewing has to make everything weave together in the perfect way is totally lacking here.
no, absolutely. It feels very disjointed. Nothing really flows the way it should. I mean, you mentioned it in the recap, this weird intro subplot nonsense.
I'm kind of intrigued by it. That might be the thing I'm most intrigued about, but I don't get to learn about it. We just get one page a month. Eventually, it might matter.
I should like this more. Like, I should. I know that I should.
That is how I feel reading it every time. I'm like, I should love this. I love that character. I love that villain. I love this idea. I love time heists, but none of it comes together in a way I like.
Absolutely. And like me, I'm sitting here and I'm like, okay, so my boy Fang is getting a lot of spotlight and a lot of good stuff. And I'm just like, it ain't doing it.
I will say that's one thing I really did enjoy. I'm really liking the full-on Fang costume.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess like if we're full-on buying in on Fang as a name, I'm okay with that. Like, I don't know that I love it, but the costume was great. I think it's cool he's embracing this like primal title. It's really I like that aspect.
Yeah, I like the aspect of it. I like the costume. I will say Fang feels a little early 2000s to me as a name, you know, like
don't want you to take this the wrong way because I do really like Dawkins as a character, but
yeah.
Really everything about him is very early 2000s. Like he is the embodiment of that like early 2000s like thrash metal. Like he's Wolverine, but he's young and he's got the long hair and he's angrier. He's even angrier than Wolverine.
I mean, you're right. You're 100% right in that analysis.
Run something by you.
Yeah.
Speaking of Fang, he's 100% right? Like this doesn't make sense. They are 100% not just an ancient civilization. There's no way.
No way.
I think the only thing that makes sense, other than they're just lying and they're the bad guys, which is totally still possible, they're time travelers. Their society wasn't the first mutants. It's future mutants who went back in time and like started a society, whether they're refugees because they're criminals and they're still the bad guys, or they're refugees from some cataclysmic event.
Yeah.
It does not make sense. I don't think Marvel, they're doing it with Avengers. I don't think Marvel is going to push back these billions of year old societies, and like that completely changes what the mutants are to say that like these creatures that looked exactly like humans and had X genes and like predated actual humans makes no sense.
You can't be a mutated version of something that doesn't exist yet.
Yes.
That's not the way that it works. That's not what a mutating. No.
Yeah. And I don't imagine if they were going to do that big of a retcon, it would happen in Marauders.
Marauders. Yeah, no. They're just liars. I'm pretty sure.
I still think they're liars from the future, though. That's my gets my coin in the slot for my. You know, I'm 50-50 or so on these theories, but that's my theory for now.
I'll agree. They are time liars.
Time liars. I love it. It's a little bit of a quick recap through all of these, but that's okay because it is New York Comic-Con weekend, and we had other reasons, but we ended up not recording until the very end of the weekend, so we get to go over all of the news. And so instead of going around the Marvel Universe, because there's nothing that came out, we're going to go around the New York Convention Center. So they did a full panel on Sins of Sinister. So let's talk Sins of Sinister first, the really quick version. So we witnessed the current Krakoan era crumble and enter a new Marvel Comics age brought about by Sinister's corrupt machinations. Mortal X-Men, X-Men Red, and Legion of X will be washed away, transformed into 3 limited series: Immortal X-Men, Storm and Brotherhood of Mutants, and Nightcrawlers. Series writers Kieran Gillen, Al Ewing, and Cy Spurrier will pin their respective new titles, joined by artists Paco Medina, Patch Zurcher and Alessandro Vitti. Now, what's cool is, so that's not per book. It's each of the 3 issues tackles a different time period. So you got 10 years into this to the Sins of Sinister, 100 years, and 1,000 years. And so each artist writes the issue in each time period for all 3 books. So you get this big visual distinction between each time period. And then as we get to go deeper into this apocalyptic future, we see the powers of Essex will seek to stretch beyond the limits of time and space. All 3 writers are going to continue their like core story after the events finale one-shot Sins of Sinister Dominion #1. I'm all in on this event. Like I know we have Dark Web first, but this is what I'm looking forward to. You've got the 3 best X books currently are the only things tying into it. No random tie-ins. The entire event is in 3 books written by what I would say are the 3 strongest X writers right now. I know we're not as high on Legion and Cy Spurrier, but I still had it in my top 10 when I did my big my 20 favorite books going right now. I had it in like the 7th or 8th slot.
Yeah, I would still rank Legion of X pretty high. It took a while to get going. Definitely. And then like the event of it all.
And we'll talk. Actually, it comes up again later. The pacing of that has been absolutely destroyed by delays. So,
yeah.
But these 3 guys getting to do an event with no other influences, no other tie-ins, just them for 3 months, and the fact that we're going to have all the other X books doing their own thing, to me, is like perfect.
Yeah.
Having this little crossover that's going to be amazing. It's Sinister, who all 3 of them write really well, and we've been dying for more of him. He's been fantastic. It's exactly what I was hoping for. I wouldn't even say I'd predicted. I said I hope it's Age of Apocalypse, but Sinister's version. Say like it's the Sins of Sinister is going to make Age of Apocalypse look like a Marvel summer vacation. Like, so they're leaning on the fact that this is his Age of Apocalypse, and this event is gonna be it. We might change the podcast name. Like, that's going to be so awesome. Do you have any thoughts on Sins of Sinister, or do you want to jump to the other announcement?
It's exciting. Like, this is an event that I am excited to have happen. I like that it's self-contained in like these few books. Interesting that like they're full-blown changing the names of these titles for it. I find that very interesting. But I like all the names, so it works.
My theory is Gillen came up with the dropping the T, going with the immoral X-Men, and they realized like, oh, if we do that, we have to do the other 2 too, though. And then they came up with names for the other 2. That's my theory.
I think so too. I think immoral X-Men is just like
genius.
It's so good, and it's so in line with Sinister and like his whole thing. I love it.
So we got a couple other events announced. You're probably at least a little hyped for Summer of the Symbiotes. That looks cool.
Sure,
But then coming out of that, actually, it's labeled as also happening in summer, which I think is really poor judgment on the part. We have Fall of X, which all we really know about is the tagline of the X-Men hoped Krakoa would last forever. Time to find out if they were right. And a weird comment Dugan made about the X-Men have been winning a lot lately. And did you really think the villains would just let that happen? Which I don't know what Krakoa era he's been hanging out in. I don't remember a lot of winning, but
when I read that quote, I was like, "Bitch, where? Like, where are they winning? Are we talking about the attempted genocide or the god that's trying to wipe them out? Oh, wait, sorry, that happened in the same day. Never mind the Terminator crashing your gala. Like."
They did say that this event is going to be tied to the next Hellfire Gala, which I still feel like it completely changes how Marvel time passes, because they're saying all of these years are passing in real time. But whatever, I'm excited, and that means we are at least getting one more Hellfire Gala before Krakoa comes crashing down. So one more batch of awesome outfits. And then this morning we got a couple kind of cool sounding, of varying degrees, miniseries announced that are all X-Men related, all written by women, and all starring female characters. Number 1, we've got Betsy Braddock, Captain Britain. It's a 5-issue mini written by Teenie Howard, penciled by Vasco Georgie V. Georgie V. I don't know if that's a typo. I don't know anything about Vasco, so I apologize. I'll have in the liner notes, but it's Teenie Howard getting to probably wrap up, but at least continue Excalibur, Knights of X, like that arc for Betsy Braddock. But if you remember, Knights of X, she went off into the sunset with her legion of Captain Britons. So apparently that's going to play out in a miniseries starting in February, which we will definitely cover. I'm mildly excited for. Excalibur Knights of X kind of fizzled because of how quickly and abruptly it ended, but
yeah, I mean, I'll read it. I'll probably enjoy it, but it's like the one that I am like least stoked on.
don't blame you. I would say it's number 2 for me because we're going to get to something. But all right, Rogue and Gambit, another 5-issue mini. This one written by Stephanie Phillips, art by Carlos Gomez, and it launches in March. I love Rogue. I got some heat for saying Gambit is someone it was a prompt that was like, who's a Marvel character that for no reason you just can't stand? And that's Gambit for me.
You're wrong.
He's never done anything for me. I can't really explain it. I'm not a big Gambit guy. I'm in for this. I like Stephanie Phillips. I think it's going to be a great series. We didn't really get major pitches for him, but it sounds good.
I'm excited for it. I like Rogue. I like Gambit. I like even more that it's not Chris Claremont. Let's go.
We get some Gambit written by someone that's not 20 years too late.
Yeah.
Why am I talking so much with my hands today? I don't know.
It's fun.
And then, what is the X-Men book I have been asking for the hardest?
You've been asking for a
Wolverine Laura Kenny book, right? Yeah. I want a Laura Kenny starring book. We get one. It's called X-23 Deadly Regenesis. It is a 5-issue mini written by Erica Schultz and art by Edgar Salazar, and it launches in March. To me, this is a monkey paw finger curling moment. I'm excited for this. It looks cool. I don't know why we have to retread her days as X-23.
Right.
I like that she has an identity of her own now. I like that she is seen by her fellow mutants as equal to Logan, even if the fan base in general still hasn't accepted that. Mm-hmm. I get that like a character's history is always part of who they are, but I don't know. There's something so I don't even know how to say it. It just feels like we're trudging backwards just to appease the angry fanboys. They're like, there's only one Wolverine.
Yeah, it's okay. It's the Wolverine can't be a girl crowd being listened to.
It's what it feels like. Absolutely.
That's what it says to me. You know, Daredevil can't be funny. Wolverine can't be a girl. You know, Captain America can't be black. It's all of these same ideas. It's that.
Well, it's the same crowd too.
Yeah, and it's that vibe. Like that's what it feels like is being listened to.
Okay. I have taken on the title of King of Bad Takes on a couple other social media platforms. I think this is a good take. I'm going to say it. Laura Kenny is the superior Wolverine. There could only be one Wolverine. It should be Laura Kenny.
Okay. I can support that. And that's someone that loves Fang and grew up.
I was just going to say, you've got Fang.
Loving Logan Wolverine, like grew up adoring him. And I can get behind that.
Like, I'm not saying I want there to only be one. Like, I still want the Wolverine's family book. I think that's the way to go. And you know my love of Gabby. I'm just saying, like, if you gun to my head, made me pick one of them, Laura's the only one surviving that.
Absolutely. I get that. If you had to choose, that's who you would choose.
All right. Are you ready for fan question?
Let's go.
Every week, we ask a question and solicit community answers either in the comments or email them to us at araccopublicradio@gmail.com. Last week's, we've gotten countless tie-in issues focused on individual characters' judgments. If you could pick any character from DC, Image, or other comic universe to face the progenitor for a one-shot, who would it be? And here we go. We got 2 answers this week.
2?
2! I know. First up, from Ron Catarasano, and feel free to jump on TikTok and correct me because I know we're buddies on there. Give me Lex Luthor playing chess with the progenitor who comes to him in the form of his father, and Lex gets the progenitor to question his own purpose, similar to the Amazo episodes of the Justice League Unlimited. Ooh, yeah. Lex would be a powerful counter for the Progenitor's mind games. Absolutely.
Mhm.
All right. And then we got Broken Record. He followed the rules. Said, I think I'd like to see Cheetah from DC get judged. She usually comes across as a relatively straight-laced villain, but we know from Deceased Unkillables that her morality and motivations are far less cut and dry than we would thought given the right motivator. That is a good one. I love me some Cheetah. Like, I know we're an X-Men podcast, but if we were a DC podcast, I would talk a lot about Cheetah. She is a great villain that's underutilized for sure.
That's fair. Those are both great answers. I love both of those.
Do you have one?
I do.
All right.
I think mine is a little basic.
Okay.
I would have Dick Grayson, Nightwing, get judged.
I didn't know if you were going him or Jason Todd, but I knew you were going with one of your Bat Boys.
Jason Todd is too easy. Jason Todd passes for the same reason that like Dr. Doom passes, right?
That's fair.
How dare you because it'd probably be the Progenitor to being like admit that Batman was right, and he'd probably be like, how dare you assume that Batman could ever be right about anything, and he'd walk off and flip off the Progenitor, and he'd be like, he passes.
That's fair. That's fair.
Dick Grayson, I think, would be interesting because I can't decide if it would be more compelling to have the Progenitor to come to him as Bruce or as Alfred.
Okay.
And depending on that, it would really be like how he would view it, because if it's like living up to the mantle of Batman, I feel like he would fail because he went back to Nightwing, gave up the mantle kind of thing. But like, especially with Tom Taylor's run, he's been doing his best to do right by Alfred, especially with Haven. And I think by that measure, he would undoubtedly pass.
I think that's a very, very true. And I don't know which way they would go.
Yeah.
I'm curious if they'd have it be Bruce or if they'd have it be Alfred. We've gotten a lot of single issue, like cover an entire, like just issue that covers one person's judgment. My favorite of those was Mark Russell writing the Hawkeye issue. So I would have Mark Russell write one more. I would have him do the same treatment for Ted Kord, the Blue Beetle. Ooh. Because I think he's another guy that would be on the surface comedic and like he wouldn't take it seriously, but there's so much underlying tragedy and like conflict and resentment for Maxwell Lord and everybody else. I think that would be a really powerful one shot, but only if it's written by Mark Russell. I don't want to see anybody else tackle that topic.
I think that would be fantastic. That's a great one.
And are you ready for this week's?
Yes.
All right. I took this one solo. He didn't get to give any input on this question, so you can only blame me. With New York Comic Con finally announcing a Laura Kenny book, but it's an X-23 flashback, I want to hear everyone's best monkey paw pitch. Give me an X book or event that you've wanted for years and how they could blow it. Have some fun with this question. I want to hear some like off-the-wall, detailed answers.
That'll be good. That'll be fun.
Are you ready to talk next week and the mammoth list that we face?
Yeah, it's a big one.
We have Immortal X-Men number 7. We have Wolverine 25. We have X-Force 32. And we have Legion of X number 6. Now, those are all direct, have AXE on the cover, tie-ins of series we are already following anyways.
You mean to tell me we're going to finally find out what happens to David?
Yeah, we need to talk about that Legion of X number 6 thing. We'll loop back. Yes. We have AXE Death to the Mutants number 3 and AXE Eternals number 1. For those counting at home, that means we have 3 issues written by Kieran Gillen. So in that way, we're feasting. We have AXE Iron Fist number 1. We have Captain Marvel 42. And we have Fantastic Four 48. So we have a total of 9 issues that very confident that Captain Marvel and Fantastic Four will probably just be around the Marvel Universe and will probably not tie into the event too much. But we will read them and we will cover them to whatever extent they are tied to the event. I'm hoping Iron Fist is anywhere near as good as Hawkeye because it's the other one in that same like vein. I'm excited to read Death to the Mutants, even though the biggest plot point of it's already spoiled for us. I'm curious to see who gets the Jean Grey and Tony Stark treatment out of the Eternals cast. I'm guessing Cersei, but Legion. is finally catching up to Judgment Day number 2. Number 2. The second issue of Judgment Day is the one this is catching up to. X-Force and Wolverine, I always mix up in my head, but one of them is going to be dealing with... I guess it's going to be X-Force is going to be dealing with Beast's machinations. And Mortal X-Men is a Nightcrawler issue, so that should be hype.
Oh, it's my boy?
It's his turn.
It's his turn?
It's his turn.
Oh, shit.
So
I am so ready for all the religious guilt and trauma stored within my soul to come pouring out next week.
So there's a part of me that thinks no one should ever feel like they have to spend more than $10 a week on comics.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to put you on the spot. If you had to give someone like, oh, of these 9, like just read these 3, what would be your 3 that you'd say, like, I think these are the ones that I predict are more important? And they'll give you mine.
Okay. Okay. Eternals. Immortal. And Death to Mutants.
Okay. I'm with you, basically. I think I would swap out Eternals for Legion.
That's fair.
I have a feeling that because X-Men repeated so many beats from Avengers that we're going to see a lot of repeat beats in Eternals. And I'm hoping Legion is more plot heavy, even though it's plot that we should have seen a month and a half ago.
I think that's why I couldn't pick it. It's because I'm like, it happened.
I don't blame your logic at all. I'm just so curious what happened to David and if he's still around. I want to know.
Yeah, I'm very curious about that too. I really am. It's just I can't believe we've had to wait this long. I
thought the X-Men Red delays were egregious. This is even more egregious. Like, it's just insane. All right, before I go into the outro, kind of big news. We are no longer just on YouTube. Finally got the audio feed figured out. We are recording already on Spotify, on Apple, and on Google. Actually, RSS feed will be in the notes in the YouTube video. It's on my link tree on my TikTok account. So if you go to That Nerdy Papa Bear, you can find it there. There are multiple ways you can find the RSS feed if you're more of an audio person. I know Spotify actually now has the video if you have the app open, and then you could also play it as just audio. So you could watch either version of this on Spotify. So also, not that we're attempting to monetize anytime soon, but if we got followers there, we can monetize the quickest, and then we could upgrade some of our production equipment, or I don't know, move quicker on getting merch. So feel free, if you're going to follow us somewhere, Spotify helps us the most.
And I have a feeling that rating us on Spotify would be great too.
Yeah, rate us anywhere you can. The thumbs up, the stars, no matter what app you're using, those always help.
Oh, I've always wanted to ask for ratings.
Ooh, you know what? If you give us like a text review, we will read those on the air. I always like when podcasts do that. Give us a review and we'll read them. All right. I think that does it for us this week. Thank you for hanging out, chatting all things mutant with us. If you haven't, hit subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And follow us on all of the socials. I'm That Nerdy Papa Bear on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. Keegan is Bulk Ranger on Twitter and TikTok. To me, my X-Men.